Hello, everyone. This is MMA Interesting Prospects podcast. Today, our guest is top Canadian featherweight Radley Da Silva. Hello, Radley. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for taking the invitation. And to be honest, I was really impressed by your fights this year because you fought three times. It was all the fights were in the like for the title, and you won all three of them. So if
Yeah,
you can tell me in the end of the year, how
it
successful was the like this 12 months for you?
was good, man. It was it was approximately four fights in 12 months time if you count my last one. So in like the 12 months span, it was four fights. I was lucky to win all of them and not take any damage on in any of the fights. I could have turned around and fought like in the same night if I needed to because there was no damage in any of them. And I scheduled six different fights that year, but I only got four of them. So I was trying to be as busy as possible because you only get one opportunity to really have a crack at this kind of career. So I was trying to make the most of my time. I had a lot of time off, so it was definitely it was priority number one to stay active. And we did the best we could with four fights, so I'm happy with it. I set my goal like 12 months ago that I wanted to be 6-1 and I wanted to be on the radar of getting signed to contenders. And luckily I was able to get that. So going into next year, I'm setting my new goal is that I want to have one fight under the UFC banner by the end of the year.
Yes, and actually, this is like a really big chance that it will happen because of your results. I think that it's like right now it's hard to deny you as the one of the best Canadian prospects.
Yeah.
And you started the year with the title fight against Maxim Soucy, and of course it was like kind of the domination. You won all five rounds, but it was a moment in I believe fourth round that he got a guillotine choke. And how deep was this choke?
It wasn't deep at all. It's just like obviously when someone's trying to squeeze your head, you're gonna make some faces. But the whole time I was just thinking to myself, like, man, I hope he squeezes this harder so that he gasses his arms out more. Because usually when guys jump guillotine in a professional fight, it's like a kind of a last ditch resort, kind of a Hail Mary, if you say. Because guys at the higher level, it's very hard to get that choke on. Just a few adjustments and the pressure's slightly loosened and then after that you're going to be burning your arms out trying to finish it. So it was good. And anytime I face any little adversities like that or perceived adversities, I take it as a win for me because that's just time for me to build experiences in those situations, right? I'm not the type of fighter that likes to go out there and put myself in bad situations. So anytime I get to overcome those kind of things, it's a gain for me because I learn a lot and about myself as well. So I appreciate just being in that moment, you know what I mean? So it's good because it shows I'm competing against good level guys.
And actually, you took no damage, so I think that it is also important that in the 25 minutes fights you actually didn't eat any shots, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. That's something one of my stats that I'm probably most proud of is in my whole fight career, I've probably been hit on the feet, like standing, trading, maybe like 5 to 6 times. Like like the people have thrown, little rabbit punches when they're on the ground and stuff like that, but I don't really count that. I'm talking about like actually striking and exchanging on the feet. And I've literally in my whole career maybe been hit like 5 or 6 times clean. And that's a very hard thing to do, considering quite a few of them have gone decision. So it's like I'm getting my cage time in there, I'm getting out safely, and that's probably a mark of someone that's performing at a high level. It's like not the guys that have to show their toughness every time or, getting in there and having a dogfight, but having clean performances is why I got into the sport to show that I can be a dominant martial artist.
Yes, this is important to have this kind of toughness in your like back pocket, but it's better to win by your like technique and strategy than just to rely on your just toughness.
Yeah, true. No, like, you shouldn't be getting into the fight game if you don't already know that you're tough and can handle a beating, right? If you don't want to be figuring that out in the cage. So if you should already know that before you ever step into the cage. And if you don't, then that's a big problem. So it's like I already know that I'm a very tough guy. I've had a very tough upbringing and getting hit is, it's fun for me sometimes. So I don't need to worry about that. What I worry about is going in there, showing a performance that my team can be proud of, my family can be proud of, and a performance that I can go on to the next one as soon as possible. Because at the regional scene, you don't want to be taking long breaks because got beaten up in a fight. You want to be taking fight after fight, and you can't do that if you're trying to show your toughness every time.
And in your second fight this year, you defeated Caleb Moctezuma. It was a first round submission, and for the two first round, it was like a little bit like the fight against Saucy. You also take no damage, but you finished the fight. So I think that it was also the something cool to have another win by a finish.
Yeah, no, I already knew that going into that Chelsea fight, it was going to be hard to ask for a finish, not because don't have the skills, but because I just didn't have the experience in the cage. Like I told the promoter of Battlefield myself when he was asking me to take the fight, I'm like, I can take it and I can win, but I just don't feel like I'm ready to give my best performance yet, just because I had taken 6 years off of the cage before taking one fight at 155 and then going to fight for the 45 belt. I knew that I had it in me to finish him, but I just know that experience, goes a long way. And I knew that by the time that Caleb fight when it came around, I had now two fights under my belt. I was more comfortable and I was able to get the finish. It's something that I know I had in my back pocket. It's just I knew that with time, with experience, the finishes are going to come more and more frequent. So I already knew that Maxine fight was going to be kind of like that because of the game plan and also just my time in there. So um, yeah, basically went exactly how I thought it would as far as the Caleb fight. You don't want to fight a guy coming off a clean knockout and start trading punches with him, right? He's probably going to be his most confident with his punching and boxing because he just came off a knockout finish with his hands. Um, sorry, do you hear the? Do you hear
Yes,
the?
yes.
Uh, yeah, so you don't want to be trading with someone who just came off a knockout win. That's not putting yourself at your best chance, right? You want to take him out of his comfort zone, and I was able to do that for the first two rounds. And as soon as he was uncomfortable enough, I saw the opening for the choke, and I got that. So another fight where a guy, just came from a finish with his hands, and I was able to go in there and literally take zero punches on the feet and get him out of there. So.
And in your last fight, you defeated it was Drake Randall, and everybody talks about this crazy knockout because it's actually quite rare thing to have this kind of knockout, and it was your first knockout first knockout in your career. So probably it was also was like super sweet to have this kind of knockout.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, yeah. You can't complain about that kind of stuff. And everyone when they hear that I'm fighting, like I feel like the main thing people always ask is like, "Oh, when are we gonna see the flashy capoeira stuff?" Because coming from my family and stuff, those guys all get flashy capoeira knockouts. So the pressure's always on me to get one of those. And I don't really, I kind of put that past me because I'm a lot more well-rounded. I'm like kind of the new generation of capoeira fighter. So for me to get one of those, it wasn't a forced thing. It was because of the matchup. I had someone who was like a lifelong wrestler, and it's like, okay, why take it to their most comfortable, even though I know I could wrestle and grapple with anyone in the world. It's a strategic thing. You want to take a path of least resistance. So staying on the feet with someone who had much less striking experience than myself was the clear choice. And because of that it opened up I got to open up my striking. The other matches were a strategic thing to take it to the ground because I know I had a clear advantage there. So in this fight, I knew where my advantage was, and that's where I kept it, and that's where I got the finish. And yeah, it was good because Drake was on a hot streak as well. He was 6-0, all his wins by first round finish, and it's good because those are the kind of guys that I've been facing. Like the two guys, even Caleb and Maxime, they both were on a 5-fight win streak, 6-fight win streak, and what was his name? Drake was on a 6-fight win streak as well. So I'm facing these kind of guys that are on hot streaks. They're at the height of their career, about to go to the UFC, and I'm able to take them out just before that because I'm proving that I'm just one level above.
And after this fight, were there any talks about you going to the Contender Series this year? Some like serious offer, let's say.
No serious offer, but that's because mostly because the season was on the last week of the show, really. But I got to talk to some one of the UFC matchmakers. My manager guy kind of talked to the UFC matchmaker, so they know of me. They're very aware. They kind of gave me a path of what they want to see from me, and right now I'm just looking at getting another win under my belt and having a good record ready. So when they start signing for this year of Contender Series, which is early next year, I'll have like a good record for it, because but they've all seen my knockout. They're very impressed with it. And I'm right there literally.
And actually, it's kind of impressive because right now, according to Topology, you are number seven in the featherweight division in Canadian scene. But I think that you even could be higher, like top three guy, because of course the featherweight division in Canada is like super deep. There are a lot of good fighters, but when you are like top five or top three, it means it like indicates how good you really are.
Yeah, I know. When I fought Caleb Montezuma, he was number two in Canada, and then I beat him, and now the number two guy or three guy, it's like John Nguyen, and I finished him as well. So it's like I already, anytime they keep putting a new guy in the top three or the top two, I'll beat them, and then I'm somehow in the sixth or seventh. So I think they have AI doing those rankings. I'm pretty sure from what I heard. So it's not like somebody who's actually using some, logic. I think the AI is going off numbers and whatever stats they're going off of, but it doesn't make sense. I checked the rankings. They got like, yeah, like I said, John Nguyen and number three they got like Mateo Vogo and number five or something, and he just finished him, or no, he just beat him earlier this year. So it's like, how can they have? It just doesn't make any sense. So you can't really look into those rankings. I just know that the only way I do look at the rankings is whoever's at top, I always offer to fight them. Like I've been bugging everybody who's one, two, and three. If you see them in the one, two, or three, I've either fought them, beat them, or have offered to fight them several times, and they're just not taking it. So that's the only way I use the Tapology rankings right now.
And if we can talk a little bit about your beginnings in the sport, because you have a like capoeira background, right? It was the first combat sport that you train.
Yeah, that's where I started my martial arts journey, you can say. I was raised in it, so my dad was a teacher in Brazil, and then he came over to Canada and kept teaching. And my cousins have a big school here, and it's like a worldwide school, so we continued our training with them as well when we got here. And yeah, just growing up and watching them represent Capoeira in the ring and stuff. And back then, it wasn't even professional. It wasn't like sanctioned. There was no commission back then when they were doing it. But it was just cool to see. Like I already always knew that I was gonna compete in MMA just to represent Capoeira and show like that we're legitimate martial art. But I never saw it as like a career type thing. Even when I would watch like UFC, I just thought it was awesome. And I just never really saw a career path in it because I always wanted to be like a soccer player or something like that. So when I finally grew older and I took my first amateur fight and I got a win by TKO and it was so addicting, I'm like, man, I want to keep doing this. And then by that time, the UFC was getting established and they had big names like Anderson Silva, GSP, John Jones, all these champions, that like they were really doing well in life. And I always thought, man, I think I have the skills to do this too. So, I started doing wrestling and stuff and in high school and just things that would help my future if I wanted to continue doing the sport. So I was lucky to have like a dad who, was also fighting at the time. So he was doing like things like wrestling and jujitsu, and it kind of got me in all that stuff when I was young, preteen, and I just never stopped.
To actually have actually the quite interesting career because in 2013 you got two fights and then it was like 6 years break. So what was the reason behind such a long break? Because 6 years is quite a long one.
Yeah, so I took my first pro fight. It was kind of a last second thing because what happened was was we got removed from our father's care by the government when we were like 16 because it's very different raising a kid in Brazil and in Canada, right? So it's very different things allowed. So the child services came in, removed me and my brother when we were 16, 17, and we've been living on our own since then. And so when I was 18, after taking maybe like a year and a half off training, I took my first pro fight after like a couple maybe like a month or so of training, and then I got notice of a pro fight for like a couple weeks beforehand, and I just took it because I was like, man, I've been training my whole life. I'm better than anybody. I don't need to train for a fight, and I just kind of took it, just because I needed to at the time, and yeah, I fought like an undefeated guy in his hometown. I was like 18, he was like 31 in his prime, and yeah, I went there and I dominated him for 3 rounds, and then the first moment I got into a bad position, I was so tired from not training and not giving a crap about the whole thing that I'm just like, man, I want out of here. And I just gave a rear naked choke. And then a month after that fight, I took another fight just because I wanted to right the wrong. I won that against like a former amateur champion at Battlefield. And it was actually the first show in Canada that was sanctioned professionally by the commission. It was in 2013. So that was pretty cool. And I got to fight on the same card as my dad. And then after that, I basically went to Brazil for a while, for like almost 7 months. I got stuck in Brazil because my PR expired while I was there, so I couldn't come back to Canada. And I was stuck there for a long time. And when I finally came back, I was like 18 with nothing set for myself, and I had to basically just like work like to be able to survive in Vancouver. It's very expensive. So I basically had no time to really focus on a fight career or anything like that. Like I was lucky enough to still be able to train here and there because gyms would let me train there because I've been training forever just to have me around. But I never really got to focus to take a fight till years later down the road when I had myself like established financially and like I was more comfortable in life. So it was just like a lot of time of just like growing and learning other things in life other than fighting, right? Developing other skills, getting into, the film union and doing other stuff like that. But yeah, when I was finally established and good in life, and yeah, it's not like throughout the 6 years I never tried to take fights. I did. It's just it would never go through for one reason or another. And then, finally when I was kind of set and more comfortable in life, I guess, things aligned and I was finally able to start taking fights. I took a fight in late 2019 against John Nguyen for the RFC title. And I won that one by finish. And then right after that, COVID-19 happened. No events really regionally were going on for like a good year and a half. And then when I came back into it, maybe at like the end of 2022, couldn't get a fight. When 2023 started, I'm like, man, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get a fight. So I trained all from January to June trying to get a fight. So like a 6 month camp, couldn't get any fights, man. And at that point, I was kind of like ready to hang it up. I was like, it's just too hard to get fights here regionally. And I was having a daughter coming up too. My daughter was being born, and I was like, yeah, I feel like I should probably just like retire or just, hang it out because it was just not happening. I wasn't getting fights. Like, what's the point of doing all this and you can't even compete? So right before I was kind of like set on retiring, looking for other jobs, the Battlefield promoter called me. He's like, I think I have a fight for you. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll say yes to it. We'll see how it goes. And luckily I was able to actually get in there. And then after that, he kind of like told me like, if you want to get fights and you want to make it easier for yourself, you have to be a champ. And then guys can't really turn you down as much. And so that's why we pushed for that title fight right away. And yeah, after I got that, it's been a lot easier getting fights, man. And I'm so grateful for that.
So there were a lot of like tough moments in this story, right?
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't as easy as just being a really good martial artist and being able to go in there and compete. It was, yeah, a lot of things in the way, but now I feel like a lot of that's cleared, and I'm getting a lot of support. People are pushing me forward to be able to even try to accomplish this dream, which is like something that, you know, especially in a city like Vancouver, is literally one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. So it's not an easy thing to do, but like I'm super grateful for the support system I have right now.
But right now also you have this kind of great activity because we are like super busy. You take all of the possible fights. So I think that is great because of this you can go. Uh, quickly to the UFC because sometimes you have like 4 fights in like 2 years or something around this, and you had like four fights in less than the year, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, I actually had 6 fights scheduled. 2 of them didn't go through, but I would have fought easily 6 times in that 12 months. So as long as, I'm healthy, there's no reason I shouldn't be competing. I was actually pretty annoyed that after my last fight, I wasn't able to get a fight before the end of the year. Like we actually tried. I was like messaging everyone trying to get a fight on Tough Enough, trying to fight for the CFFC belt. Like just everyone kept denying me fights, so I just have to go back and defend my Battlefield belt because no one else was letting me fight. They didn't. They're champions in other promotions. They would like they would they would pretend to like kind of like say, "Oh yeah, okay, ask my price" and all that stuff. Pretend like they would kind of accept it, and eventually they'll just be like, "No, never mind. This guy's not going to take it or whatever." So, yeah, defending a belt is always something that you can get fighters to. I mean, defending a belt is always easier to get fighters to fight you when they want a chance of getting your belt. So it's a little harder sometimes when you're going for a belt because the guys can just deny and pick who they want. But when you're the guy with the belt, you get your choice of people. So, but yeah, like, I'm gonna be fighting anyways in January 23rd, so it's coming up pretty soon.
Do you have a like opponent officially announced?
Not officially announced, but I think Battlefield's gonna release that in like this week, I think. They were telling me this week they were gonna release it. So it's a good opponent. It's one, I'll just say this, he's got 30 professional fights and several UFC fighters on his record. So it's definitely a fight where if I win, there's been quite a few guys who after they beat him, they go right to the UFC or contenders or something like that. So it's definitely one of those fights that should put me on the next level.
And this is like always great to have the UFC veteran on your record because it means that you are on this level. You can beat this kind of fighter, and probably after this kind of win, because it is a big name, it's like the path to the UFC can be a little bit shorter.
Yeah, no, he didn't fight for the UFC, but last year he beat a guy that came right out of the UFC. So he fought a guy who came right out of the UFC and he beat him just like a year ago. And he has maybe like 4 or 5 UFC fighters that he's fought on his record, and he needs to beat like at least 2 of them. So he has a lot of UFC level competition. And, it seems like he's like the gatekeeper almost because there's been a few guys that once they beat him, they go either to Contender Series or the UFC. So, I mean, he's got a winning record and he has 30 fights. So it's definitely the highest caliber opponent I've faced so far. So,
And do you have a like a name in mind from the UFC that in the end you would like to fight?
well, yeah, obviously I wanted to fight Ilya Taporia, but I don't know how long he's going to stay at 45 for. I always thought that was a good matchup just because stylistically, I think it'll benefit a lot. But I don't know. At this point, I'm gonna just take it a step at a time. Just knowing that after this fight, like I'm gonna be ready. It doesn't matter if they need a short notice guy for a top 10, a top five. I just need to be ready to take whoever, and that's how you got to be if you're going to be in the UFC. You can't be there. Oh, I need to build myself up one fight. You need to be ready to take any opportunity at any time. And if not, then I don't know how else you're gonna go about it in the UFC. They don't play around. They don't like to baby fighters, right? They just give them the hardest matchup. Whoever wins moves up. Whoever loses, good luck.
And how quickly can you make weight a featherweight limit?
Uh, I can walk around lighter than I normally do, but it usually takes me about 6 weeks, so it's like a month and a half. But that's when I'm like out of camp type thing, and I get pretty heavy for a heavyweight for a featherweight, but I can definitely stay lower. Like I can walk around at 165 if I really wanted to, but normally I do get up a little higher, like 180, but it only even from 180, like every camp I've had in the last year, I come down from 180 and I make weight in like 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks. So, and it's always an easy cut. Like if you see me, I always make it underweight and stuff like that. And Yeah, 45 is definitely my weight class. It's one where if I want to get a little fatter outside of camp, I can do that. If I want to stay in shape, I can do that. It's one of those classes that I feel like is just perfect for me. Like it really is. Like my as far as my length and everything and body weight, I feel like it's like the perfect weight class.
And if the UFC would offer you a fight in the lightweight division, but in the like 2 or 3 weeks short notice, would you also be interested in taking this?
100%, man. You had that's honestly, if you're not gonna go to the contender series, that's almost the only other way to get in there. It's a short notice injury replacement type of deal. Because yeah, even Sean Shelby said that directly when I talked to him in Edmonton. He's like the only those are the only really ways to get in the UFC right now. They don't really sign people off the bat like that. So yeah, you have to be ready to take a fight anywhere, man. Heck, I might even take one at 170 if I have to. You know, I walk around just 10 pounds over that, but if it was to get me in the UFC, heck yeah. I mean, I had a teammate of mine who fought at 145 and he took a short notice fight at 170, Tristan Connolly, and he won that. So it's definitely possible. It sounds crazy, but we have literal proof that it works.
It was a fight against Pereira, I believe. It was quite a big surprise few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That was fun. Yeah. Yeah, we helped him get ready for that. And specifically I was helping him for that because like I did cut with him my whole life and we know how to do that style and be flashy like Pereira. So and he's been training with us for years. So we knew that he had a really good chance of winning that fight. That's why we took it. And look at where Pereira is now, you know what I mean? He's like on a big well, he just lost, but he's a very good UFC record, let's just say. He only has like two losses and a bunch of wins. So
Okay, Radley. So many thanks for the conversation. I think that it is obvious that next year you will fight in the UFC, and I hope that in your next fight in BFL you will get another finish.
yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm looking for. The guy I'm fighting, he's been submitted a few times, but he has only been in 30 fights. He's only been TKO'd, KO'd one time. So that's honestly something that would be a huge feather in my cap if I was able to get him out of there in that fashion. Obviously, you got to be prepared for everything. You got to prepare for 5 rounds. You got to be just willing to get your hand raised. So, but if I can get a finish over a guy like this, especially a KO TKO, I see a really good chance of getting signed to contenders right away. But if not, I'm looking to stay active, and I'll be on contenders this year no matter what. So if it's after the back of this fight or the fight after this, I'm just gonna keep doing my thing, and I'm getting more and more comfortable in there, and the finishes are gonna come more and more.
Yes. So UFC in 2025, there is no other option.
Yes, sir.